Contemporary Black Voices, where today we are going to talk about 3 hot topics. And the first hot topic is going to be about the U.S. entanglement with Israel and Hamas. President Biden's in a bind. He is definitely in a bind. And these, the latest drone attacks between Iran and Israel is really tightening his abilities to satisfy the powers to be and the powers who want to be. So, Chris, let's talk about this Israel-Hamas entanglement with the U.S.
I think that, as you've mentioned, that the U.S. is in a real precarious situation. Mm-hmm. You've got a first-term president who is running for re-election in a America that is like a melting pot. So you've got a large Jewish population, and when I say large Jewish population, I'm really talking about from a financial standpoint. They own and control a lot of things in America from a business standpoint. So from a donation standpoint, there's a lot of money that they provide to presidential election. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, since President Herbert Walker Bush, the old man, when he came in, there are a lot of Muslims that are in this country, especially in Michigan, Ohio, and some of the other areas and around the country, who don't want to see what's happening to Gaza happen to them. So you've got a lot of voters that represent that in America, and they don't want to see it. So you got that conflict within America. Then you also have the conflict around the world. There are more Muslims around the world than anything else. And you're talking about, I can't imagine the absurdity of Israel wanting to attack the embassy in Syria of Iran. I thought that was kind of crazy. And then they don't expect, I think Israel did not expect, or they didn't want Iran to retaliate against them, even though attacking a embassy is almost like an act of war. It's not something that you do with regular people. Embassies are supposed to be off limit. So you had those things that happen. And then when you talk about all of the Muslim countries in the world, you've got Iran, you've got some of those other countries that surround Israel who would all be for Iran. Plus you would have China who's with Iran, and you would have the USSR, not the USSR, but Russia, who would be with them as well. So we are in a very peculiar situation as to, even talking to Iran, they're saying, United States, you just need to stay pat and don't get involved in anything that we're doing.
One of the questions that, really should be on the table is Israel trying to start World War III? Biden's latest move was to tell Israel to stand down.
Right.
Just to stand down. Then we have ministers, one local minister, John Hagee from Cornerstone Church. He and his congregation, and I forgot what they're called, they're going to D.C. to go into the chambers and really demand that the U.S. supports Israel. And so we've got the Christian religious groups pushing for U.S. support of Israel. But then you got folks like everybody on this panel. I'm not excited about seeing World War III. So I'm going to give kudos to Biden telling Israel, you need to stand down. But I think Netanyahu, he wants World War III. He wants World War III.
And his people want him removed. Mm-hmm. I mean, even the people of Israel aren't necessarily for what's going on in Israel right now. So he's got a conflict also within his own country with him.
And, the move about if there's a war, then the ideal that he can probably stay in power.
Right.
So he might need this for, just have a war so I can stay in power.
And how much does that affect also Biden? Because we've never replaced a president who's been involved in a war. Okay, that never happened. So if you were able to remove Biden at this time, who's, I think we're in a proxy war when you talk about Ukraine and Russia and different things like that, I look at the U.S. as being in a proxy war. We're not necessarily in the war, but we're propping it up with a lot of money and supply.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what are your thoughts? Do you have any? Caleb just got back from Rome.
He's still on vacation.
We don't have these problems with Italy. No, I agree. I agree with everything that this said.
Let me reframe the question. Mm-hmm. You were of the panelists. You were closest to this situation. Did you have any concerns about this war and your ability to be in Italy and not worry?
No, I wasn't worried at all. That they do security very well. Very well. No, if you go to the sites, you see Italian soldiers that are patrolling. It's not Italian police. It's Italian soldiers that are patrolling a lot of the sites.
Because I've always wondered about that with Israel carrying on, Iran saying, "Hey, why are you bothering us?
Right.
But we're going to send this drone over here and attack you for attacking us."
Right.
How does that affect the countries in between?
Right. No, again, yeah, Israel was again the aggressor by attacking the Iranian embassy in Syria, killing a leading Iranian general. And of course, the Iranians have domestic concerns, domestic political concerns, so they can't not attack back.
Right.
You know what I mean? So they had to attack back. The Israelis knew that they had to strike back. To me, just from my eyes, it does look like Israel is trying to draw a wider conflict. They have a big bad sugar daddy standing behind them, and so that kind of mitigates their concern as to this thing getting out of hand. If you have the backing of the most powerful military in the world, then of course they're not really worried about Iran.
But Caleb, when you were there, were you able to talk to any of the locals, and were they able to tell you, or were you able to get a feeling on how they felt about what was going on in the Middle East and what they felt about America?
No. So our group, we had a couple of guys that were from the Middle East as part of our group. So we had some really good conversations about what's going on. But in general, I did not. The Italians have their own thing that's going on right now. They have a very extremely conservative prime minister. And so they are really focused on a lot of their domestic issues rather than overseas issues. And so I can say this. I was able to see and understand and feel and experience what they were saying about immigration in Italy. And so there are a couple of times I got off the train station, I looked around, I thought I was in Nigeria. And so I walk a little bit away from the train station, I'd hear rap in Arabic, and I'm thinking I'm in Morocco. I mean, so you see it, and it's very, very visible. And they have some immigration concerns.
It's off the subject, but America is not the only country who's dealing with immigration. Oh. I think it's all over the world.
Oh, yeah.
But we get into our own silo and kind of feel that everything is happening just right here.
Right.
But that's not the case.
And not at all.
Okay.
So they're not focusing so much on what's going on right now with Israel, Hamas, versus their concerns about immigration.
Immigration is their big concern.
And U.S. is just involved in everybody's business.
U.S. is in everybody's business. But no, I mean, with Israel, again, of course, Netanyahu was in trouble before the war started.
Right.
And prolonging this war is in his interest because it's been said repeatedly, after this thing is over, we're going to have to talk about the intelligence failures. We're going to have to talk about your policies that led up to this happening. So Netanyahu is on his way out as soon as this thing is over with. So it's in his interest to prolong this
Let me say this to you and Sharon before we move off of this topic. I think Iran has been very benevolent in what they did. Okay. Their strike back to Israel, they, for their people, I think had to strike back. That's number one.
Right.
But in their strike back, what they did is they told everybody that had any interest, probably 2 weeks before, what they were going to do. They sent all of this stuff out. Nobody got hurt, you know, and it was just for them to say, we did something, okay, nobody got hurt or whatever. Then the audacity for Israel to come back
and strike again.
Again. You know, and so, to me, that was just absurd.
That they're trying to kind of, and they you can kind of tell the media's on board, because the retaliatory strike didn't get that much coverage, and then Israel's second strike didn't get that much coverage. They're trying to bring the heat down and bring the level down to keep this thing from really getting out of hand and spreading. But no, and the thing is that when they did the retaliatory strike, it was not only the Israelis that knocked down, it was the U.S. that knocked down the majority of the Iranian missiles that were incoming. A lot of that was the U.S. that did that. So I don't understand. People are talking about we need to support Israel. I don't understand how much more support Israel needs. You know what I mean? Because we're shipping money hand over fist. We're shipping weapons hand over fist. We're rearming them.
I'm going to ask a rhetorical question. We can move on after this. But my question is if the United States can't reel Israel in, who can?
The U.S. can, but they so again, it's domestic.
But how can? Okay. Now by you answering it that way, the question becomes how can the U.S. do that in a political year when you've got Biden, who needs all of the Israeli support that he can get from a financial standpoint in running for re-election?
Well, see, that's the problem. My problem that I have right now with Biden is the same problem that I used to be screaming at the television set with Barack Obama. They're not going to give you money anyway. They're not going to vote for you anyway. Those people are lock, stock, and barrel with the Republican Party.
Well, wait a minute. You need to kind of help us on that, because when you've got Trump and democracy on trial, so to speak, with this election coming up, are those people really with the Republicans?
Yeah.
And you're saying, yeah.
You talk about the Israeli lobby?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. They lock, stock, and barrel with the Republican Party because they understand remember, the part of the Republican Party is this evangelical crowd who believes that the Jews and the second coming and all this kind of stuff. So you have this really evangelical Republican element to it. But those folks are never going to, they aren't going to give money to the Biden campaign anyway. So he's trying to
outraising Trump at this particular point. And I think it's very kind of naive to think that if you elect a Trump, we're getting off subject, but if you elect a Trump as a Republican, that you've already seen that this man really doesn't care about anybody but himself.
Right.
So if you elect him, what makes you think, he might do because his son-in-law is Jewish or whatever, a different thing. He might do a little couple things for the Jewish people or whatever, but he don't care about the Bible that he's holding up, for the Christians or what. I mean, it's just ludicrous.
But he's going to listen to the people in his party.
Who's paying the money.
Especially the people in Congress. So he's going to go all out. If Trump is elected, he's going to go all out and support Israel. Ukraine will fall. That's the main thing. Israel's going to be okay regardless, to be honest with you. If Trump is elected, Ukraine will fall. He's going to pull all U.S. support from Ukraine. He's going to give the Russians a victory, a major victory. Ukraine is going to fall. What you're going to see is a lot of assets and resources that now come under the control of the Kremlin. And you're going to see a Cold War that reemerges like you've never seen before.
So democracy, if Ukraine falters, then our relationship with Italy, our relationship with the UK, and all of those people over there might also falter as well, because they can't depend on the U.S. to be a promoter of democracy anymore if you're going to go with all these other countries who are pro-Russian or pro-dictatorship, so to speak.
Right. Well, see, that's the thing. They got taken by surprise last time. They're ready this time. So they're already putting things in place just in case Trump gets reelected.
So the 2025 report?
They've already started to put together an arms package outside of the U.S. Arms agreements that are EU agreements that are outside of NATO. So they're moving control of this process away from any kind of U.S. input, because they understand what potentially, or what probably most likely will happen if Trump regains power.
And then if that happens, things like as simple as the UN being in New York would have to be moved.
Well, I mean, it's useless anyway, but that's another story.
Right.
But no, again, like I said, going back to the Israeli thing, they are really trying to tamp down the temperature on that thing, the responses. And so again, and to answer your question, Biden just needs a pair of cojones. If he wants to end this,
what do you want him to do?
I want this. He can. One simple thing: we're not gonna resupply you. That's it. We're not gonna resupply you any more munitions, and that's gonna bring the war to a close. And that's not gonna harm Israel's security, because Israel's sitting on a couple of nukes anyway. So and besides that, Iraq doesn't have the ability to attack Israel. Syria doesn't have the ability to attack Israel. Saudi Arabia doesn't have the ability to attack Israel. Egypt, none of his neighbors have the ability to do anything, to any kind of harm to Israel. Israel is a technological power and a military powerhouse over there. So the only thing,
and smaller than the rest.
Smaller than the rest of them.
Right.
The only thing Biden has to do is say, "We're not going to resupply your arms. So whatever bombs you got, you better save them. Stop dropping them."
Okay, so we got a lot to think about. So let's move on to our next hot topic. We're going to talk a little bit about the next series of anti-DEI fallouts. We already know that the higher education system has been absolutely victimized. One of the things that some of the universities are doing is they're trying to honor some DEI policies, but they are renaming these offices to like equity and access. A lot of people who were anti-DEI thinking that it was only about Black people, now we're starting to see a whole range of people, such as Hispanics, such as Native Americans, such as Muslims. They're realizing that this anti-DEI movement is impacting them as well. Think about what happened at Harvard. They use Asian students to push the agenda, and now they're realizing, hey, this is against us as well in terms of affirmative action. So on the screen, we're looking at the attacks on DEI in just higher education alone. So we've got the states that are in blue. There's no bill at the time. The states that are in yellow, bills have been signed into law, and of course, the states with blue, there were bills, and they have failed. Texas is an interesting piece of work being here in Texas in terms of all the efforts that they're going to remove DEI. In fact, the Supreme Court made a decision, I believe, where this anti-DEI legislation could start impacting corporations somehow. So the anti-DEI movement is a situation to where hiring practices, where you're trying to hire people who are representative of the community, but now they're going to say, we want to hire the best. we want to hire the best. So what do you mean by the best? Is that a code word for we're going to hire white only? And so in Tennessee, the two black men who opposed an agenda that the House was trying to promote there, they were silenced, and another one has been silenced just recently. This whole, and I have several learners across the country. And even a lot of my white learners are telling me their concerns about the anti-DEI movements.
What are their concerns?
Especially my white learners who are in education. They were saying, Doc, these kids need to see representation in the classroom. And they're working with students who are not doing well. And the book bans, which is part of the anti-DEI movement, okay, is prohibiting them from bringing in books in the classroom that's representative of the different kids. And in some states, it takes just one parent to complain. So even my white teachers are concerned about the jaws that has been put on them to where they're having problems teaching. They're trying to get these kids reading, get them excited by reading, but all the books that quote unquote are approved have white kids on the cover, have white folks on the cover. But even them saying that's wrong. These kids need to see representation in the classroom. They need to see representation on the campus, which has been my big thing here locally. So the anti-DEI movement is not going away. It can get worse. Especially, and what's really irritating about the anti-DEI movement is that nothing else is getting done but suppressing diversity, equity, and inclusion. We've got so many other areas to be concerned with: homelessness. We've got squatter situation going on. We've got a lot of other things that these politicians need to focus on, but they're focusing on low-bearing fruit.
And I do want to talk about, two things. One, DeSantis had to roll back. He had lost. They had lost. There was a court case that happened in Florida where people were challenging the Bible. So DeSantis had to roll back some of his book banning and anti-DEI efforts. That way they could still include and reference the Bible in school. So he got caught on that one, and they had to roll that back. But the other thing is, though, you see it where they are expending a lot of effort and a lot of money on these anti-DEI initiatives. Of course, DEI, of course, they believe it's you have positions that are going to people who they think are not qualified. In other words, black folks. But it has migrated into corporate America. So we see the same thing that they're talking about now is a banning of affiliation groups for graduation. Right. They are now doing that in corporate America. So whereas
they're removing affinity
groups are being removed in corporate America. So whereas I remember we had we have it where I currently am, but we also had it with my former employer. We had some really big affinity groups. The Black Heritage Network group. There's a
women,
Hispanic,
women's affinity groups, veterans groups.
Yeah.
And these groups really, and they have all these different groups, but they were bringing representatives of the groups to the table to try to, work out some things to where it helps the organization at large. And so now you're seeing a reduction or a dismissal of those groups. And even though I'm trying to figure out where this falls within the realm of anti-DEI, now that we have states pushing for school vouchers, that the states that have who have school vouchers, private school parents now can go to the public schools to force them to do testing for special education. So if these parents who are in private schools are taking these vouchers and turning around saying, we're going to use these vouchers to have our kids tested for special education, then that really plugs up the system to where you have more these private school parents who are not really contributing in public education, but they're taking advantage of the opportunities in public education at the risk of not being able to help the students who are actually in public education who needs access to services. So politicians, you know, we always say stay in your lane, but this is a case where you have opened Pandora's box. You have opened Pandora's box. Any questions, any concerns?
No, I mean it's getting worse and worse. Again, I'll say it for the 100th time. If you're against diversity and equity and inclusion, it's just you're against seeing Black faces in certain spaces, and we just need to call them what they are. They're segregationists. You know what I mean? And that's what they are. And we need to stop sanitizing the term for it. You know what I mean? They're Bull Connor.
Okay. And then our final topic, there was a Black female Uber driver who was shot and killed by an 80-year-old passenger. And Chris, I know that you have really looked deeper into this situation, but one of the questions becomes now to whether it goes back to gun rights and whether or not there needs a better marshaling of whether people in their 80s could even have access to guns. And this woman was just delivering a package that she picked up to deliver to him. And he thought that she was trying to scam him. It was part of a...
Well, let me correct a couple of things that you said. First of all, he was not a passenger.
No, it was a package.
Yeah, and she did not have the package. She was going to pick up the package from him. He was being scammed by some people on the phone, and both of them actually were kind of being scammed.
Okay.
She was being used to go pick up the package, and they were telling the old man that he had a grandson or a relative who was in prison, and they wanted $12,000 to $15,000. I don't remember what the number was, and that he needed to get that for them. And they sent the Uber driver to go pick up the package from him. She's sitting outside in the car thinking he's going to bring the package out to her. That package never arrives or comes out to her. So she goes up to knock on the door to see about the package. Now, also at the same time, not understanding what she's doing, what she's picking up. She's just picking up a package. You know, she doesn't have to know what's in the package or whatever. And so she knocks on the door. The old man comes out with the gun, okay? And he keeps asking her, who is she working for? Because he's thinking she's part of the scam. She's part of the scam. She's telling him Uber, okay? He don't know what the hell Uber is, okay? So he don't know what that is. And so she's trying to get away, say, hey, look, let me leave. He's not letting her leave, so he shoots her first in the leg, okay? And she's calling for help, help, help. Then he shoots her in the shoulder, and he continues to shoot her twice, which by the time the police and the medics get there and take her to the hospital, she actually dies.
She dies.
So the question really becomes in this situation is how much, who's at fault? What does Uber have to play into all of this? The guy with the gun, the older man who, you know, he doesn't know nothing about nothing, but he's got a gun and he's thinking she's involved. And these people who are scamming got that woman killed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So it's a real bad situation all the way around. And I don't know the answers to all the situation or all the issues surrounding this situation. But I do know that there are a lot of people who got taken advantage of that had nothing to do with any of this. And that includes the black woman who was the Uber driver. That includes the white older man. That it really kind of includes Uber as well. These all people were innocent people. Uber trying to just provide a service. The lady, trying to make some money for her family, and the white guy who's just older, and America allows him to have a gun, and so he's out toting and carrying his gun and kills this lady, and really shouldn't be.
You know what? He needs to go to prison. So, and I know he's an older gentleman. He's able to question her. Age. Yeah, he needs to go to prison because there's a responsibility that comes with having that gun, and if he has the mental faculty to question her, and he should have the mental faculty to call law enforcement and not to pull that trigger.
And he did call law enforcement, but only after
he still pulled the trigger. Right,
he shot her.
Yeah, right. So no, his ass needs to go to jail. And I hope they're able to trace and find the people who are really responsible, which were the scammers, because they all need to be in prison.
The question that kind of comes up, and I think we've probably beat this to the end, but the question that comes up is, what is their responsibility?
Who's that?
The people who actually,
scammers?
Yeah, the scammers, and it's been debated on a number of law shows, so to speak, as to who should be brought to justice and why and how and whatever. And because this guy did it outside of his house, he can't say the castle law,
right?
Because
he's going to prison.
Yeah, because he's outside. So
he didn't have no business shooting her, so he's going to prison.
Right.
She's unarmed.
Right.
So
she's trying to get away.
She's trying to get away.
Yeah.
He's going to prison, and then, but ultimately, because the people who sent her there, on that scam, are ultimately responsible, because even the most basic law, if you and I go somewhere and we go to rob somebody and I get killed in the robbery, you get the murder charge. Even though me and you went together to do this, you still get the murder charge as well.
I'm going to say, we can kind of wrap this up, but hopefully the audience has also heard about the kid in Texas that's 10 years old who admitted to killing the man when he was 7, just, I guess, basically for the mere fact of doing it. And the authorities are saying because he's 7 in Texas, they cannot prosecute a child who's 7 years old. And he said he got the gun from his grandfather, not that he gave it to him, but he knew where the gun was, took the gun. This man was sleeping. He went and shoots him in the head. They never found out who did it. But because this kid was on the bus and was talking about he was going to kill another kid, and then began talking about this other, is how they found out about that.
Wow.
So there's a lot of stuff going on. These guns in America, it's got to stop. It's got to be curtailed. There's a lot of things going on. I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for correcting me.
Okay.
That's okay. Just accept it for now. But there's a lot of stuff going on out there right now. But how to get resolved?
Can I say this, though?
Yeah.
Before we close out. So, no, the 7-year-old, his ass needs to be locked up till he's 18.
Texas law says he can.
I don't know
They can't
why.
charge him.
They can charge him as a juvenile. He can be locked up.
They can. They said
Until he's 18?
Was he black or white?
He's white.
That's why.
I think.
Okay.
That's why.
But they said because a child who's 7 years old does not have any faculties to know.
So if it was a black child, what would they be saying?
Lock him up till he's 18.
Audience, I'm not going there.
certify him. But no, he
gonna certify a 10-year-old as an adult.
Yeah. So no, but no, he 7 years old. Yeah, he doesn't have the mental faculties, but he should be in an institution till he turns 18. And obviously, it needs to be an institution that can provide him with mental assistance.
He is in a mental, or they are evaluating him here in San Antonio. This happened in Gonzales.
Okay.
Okay. So, but they did bring him here after they found out, because he told this other kid on the bus, "I'll kill you."
He'll kill you, and we'll probably do it.
Right.
He needs some help. Yeah,
Right.
he does. But no. But the other thing too about this gun thing. So, we probably don't have enough time. But no. So no. But I mean, this gun thing, and I'm not looking at this from either pro gun or anything like that. But I could see the standpoint of a lot of folks that are saying, okay, you have this incident that occurred, or you have this incident that occurred, and but we have a country of 350 million people, and so this incident or this incident or this incident doesn't give you the right to take away because I'm a law abiding citizen, and so I could see that standpoint because America doesn't believe in collective punishment. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, out of 350 million people, there are going to be some crazy. But so and so I'm saying this because I just, like I say, I have I was able to step out and look at the craziness from a distance. And so, looking at,
because you didn't see them kind of guns in Italy.
No.
You didn't think people
you don't
shot.
you don't have that kind of violence. You don't have that kind of. There's the only thing you have to worry about is people.
Right.
There's all the other stuff that happens. You don't have that kind of violence, and so, but just being able to engage in some different kind of conversations, and being able to look at stuff from a different standpoint. I think that a lot of times we want to give these broad prescriptions to these problems without kind of taking a look at the individual community. And I'm saying this, and this is my message to the Democrats. So the Democrats see the forest, but they don't see the trees. You know what I mean? And so the Republicans are good at seeing the trees and saying, hey, you know what? We feel you. And, we understand your community and we understand it. And people are like, oh yeah, they actually hear us, they feel us and stuff, you know what I mean? And so just, I just want to mention that a little bit though, that we need to, one, not provide giant mass collective solutions to problems that probably don't need them. And then the other thing is the way we look at problems and not understand that America is really just a collective community. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so, and what works for one community is not really what the other community is looking for. You know what I mean?
So the 81-year-old community of this white man is going to probably say that he's too old to go to jail.
Lock his ass.
Prison. But Bill Cosby was old enough to go to prison for something that happened 40, 50, 60 years ago.
You're right.
So
good point.
So there's inequities on how you see the glass either half empty or half full, but the judgment is not consistent.
No, absolutely not.
Well, we see that with Trump.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Trump is on the goal plan of the Justice Department.
Just us.
That man,
us.
I wish somebody would reduce would they reduce his bond by $300 million reduction in bond?
Oh, well, wait till this week. They're already talking about that bond may not be any good. The company that's backing it may not. They may be insolvent.
So he needs to come up with another.
That's what Letitia James is saying.
Well, good.
Letitia is on him.
Good. Because I know she mad that they even had the audacity to have her in court questioning her.
Right.
Well, with that being said, we want to thank you guys for being on Contemporary Black Voices, our Hot Topics edition. We want to leave your comments. We enjoy seeing them. Get tickled with some of the comments, but engage with us so that we know that you're watching. And with that being said, we want you to have a great weekend and keep the conversations going.
Come on back, Fred.
And as we say for Contemporary Black Voices, we're telling our stories our way.